motion to approve the written minutes of the May 23rd council meeting?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Morton to approve the written minutes of the May 23rd council meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. I'll be okay. How about if we start with the roll call? Clerk, will you please call the roll? Be all right.
Mr. Morton.
Present.
Mr. Stuchel.
Present.
Mr. Edwards.
Present.
Ms. Hausfeld. Here. Mr. Schulmeyer. Mr. Culbertson.
Present. Let the record show that 6 members are present, 1 member is absent. All right. The next item on your agenda was to discuss the BASF Emory Community Advisory Panel. We're going to put that on hold to a future committee of the whole because I found out tonight that the mayor has a meeting with them in the near future, so we're just going to hold off and see if he comes back with any additional information. At this time, then, we will move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor Jonathan Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank everyone who attended and participated in the Memorial Day service as we paid tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. It was a beautiful day in our special village, and I'm grateful for the residents who attended and for the fire, police, recreation, and service departments, Troop 354, the Delta Kings, Bagpiper Roger Loth, Father E.J. Stein, Reverend Jonathan Bradner, Phil Statham from the St. Bernard Eagles, Kay Phillips from the St. Bernard Ludlow Grove Historical Society, and Brenda Hensley from the St. Bernard Senior Citizens for their participation. I would also like to thank everyone in our community who attended and assisted with the recent Brews and Badges event in the village of St. Bernard as they hosted the Hamilton County Police Association. It was a fun event, and there were some serious pickleballers out there on the court. I'd like to thank St. Bernard resident Kurt Nectar, who, on demand, assisted with organizing the pickleball tournament and setting up the brackets. Apparently, police officers don't know how to do that. But anyhow, we were saved by our locals. The HCPA loves the community and looks forward to having additional events and funds raised to help support all of their collaborative efforts in their organization that helps local law enforcement. I also had the pleasure of swearing in Patrol Officer James Savage recently, and I would like to welcome him to our community. He joins our great police department with prior experience from both the Hamilton and Terrace Park Police Departments. Patrol Officer Savage will be working with his field training officers for the next several months as he becomes familiar with our community. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to make an announcement reminding everybody that in 2 weeks at the council meeting at 7 o'clock, we'll be having a public hearing in regards to the projected 2025 budget. Also, I'd like to ask council for an ordinance for the next committee of the whole. 2 parts to it. General fund transfer out $500,000 going into the capital improvements. We put the money in for the equipment, but we need to move the money into the fund for when the bills come due. So this is not an additional appropriation. I would like an additional appropriation 05 MP9 streets and sewers for $50,000. We are not sure this is going to be needed, but we have some major issues down, I guess we say Vine and Mitchell down in that area, which is going to be our responsibility, but they're looking at it and we have no idea how bad that's going to be. So I just want to appropriate it so we can actually have the PO and be ready in case anything happens. If it doesn't get used, that's all the better. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Have a motion to put that transfer and additional appropriation ordinance on the table?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schulmeyer.
I'll make a motion to put the general transfer and additional appropriations ordinances on the table.
Seconded.
A motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Morton to place the transfer and additional appropriation on the table. Are there any remarks? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Law Director, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. You should have before you tonight 2 ordinances which I've prepared. They both come out of the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committees. They're things we've been discussing for a while now. Proposed ordinance number 19 would amend section 121.01 of the codified ordinances regarding councilperson attended meetings, salary reduction, a vacation of office, in case somebody is basically unable or unwilling to perform his or her duties. I also prepared ordinance number 20, which would amend section 90503 of the St. Bernard codified ordinances regarding weed and litter removal. And this addresses, in part, I mean, it was the primary changes go to what our previous ordinance didn't really define like noxious weeds, that kind of thing. Previously, there had been some language which specified certain specific plants, and we amended that last fall, but at that time we were talking about, well, what do we want to actually do? So we met with members of the community. They attended the committee meetings, and the decision was made to basically incorporate the lists from the Ohio Administrative Code of the prohibited noxious weeds and also invasive plant species, which are both defined terms in the OAC. So we've included that. There was also discussion at the committee of finding excessive height as 8 inches of basically weeds as opposed to 10, which had been in the most recent ordinance. And there was also discussion, the committee wanted to make sure we got the input of residents on that. So I've not proposed that as an emergency ordinance. At Mr. Schildmeier's suggestion, we want that to go regular course, so actually people can have a chance to look at it, read it, and give us some additional input. So those are the 2 ordinances you have before you this evening, and I'd like to have those on the table for next council meeting. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to place those ordinances on the table?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer,
I'd like to make a motion to place ordinances number 19 and 20 on the table for next meeting.
Seconded.
motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Morton to place ordinance 19 and 20 on the table. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. All right, thank you. I'll go back. Peggy, wait, is your ordinance going to be ordinance 18?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I was going to say, Patty asked where 18 was, so, all right. All right, Treasurer, Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. And we will go to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee meeting that was scheduled for June 19th has been canceled in recognition of Juneteenth. A rescheduled meeting can be expected to be announced in the coming days for sometime in June. I do want to say thank you to those who were able to attend the June Community Connect. We discussed walk and bike paths, pop-up libraries, and improvements to our community pool. The next Community Connect has also been moved in recognition of Independence Day to Thursday, July 11th in the lower level of City Hall from 5:30 to 6:30. Attendees are also encouraged to attend the Committee of the Whole afterwards at 7 p.m. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Service Department will be closed June 19th in observance of Juneteenth. Residential trash pickup will not be affected that week. The Service Department would like to inform residents about the following ongoing projects around the village. The old Welcome to St. Bernard signs have been replaced with brand new ones. All railings outside of City Hall will receive a fresh coat of paint to match the new light poles being installed along the City Hall side of Washington Avenue. The new street sweeper and loader have been ordered and are expected to arrive by the end of July, if not sooner. And lastly, the larger section of the dog park at Ross Park remains closed for maintenance work. The ground inside the park has been leveled, and we are now waiting for the grass seed to take root before reopening. The dog park is anticipated to reopen within a couple weeks. That concludes that of my report.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was no need for a Public Improvement Committee meeting this month, but I would like to draw attention to a few things. First, I'd like to promote our public library. Our branch gives away free meals Monday through Friday from 2 to 2:45 p.m. That started May 31st and will run through August the 13th. All children 1 through 18 are of age or eligible for this program, and individuals 19 through 21 years of age have been identified as having mental or physical disabilities and following individual education programs through their current enrollment and educational programs are also eligible. Made possible through federal funding as part of the USDA Child Nutrition Program and in partnership with the UMC Food Ministries to bring snacks and meals to select library locations. Our children can also be involved in a summer reading program starting June 1st. Visit the library for a free book to keep and a summer reading challenge sheet. Return your completed challenge sheet by July 31st and win a prize. I would also like to thank the Rec Department for hosting our T-ball program. This year there are 5 teams, which is about 50 children. That means there are at least 10 coaches who give their time and energy so that young children can learn and enjoy playing baseball. It was also suggested that council members announce the games. Great idea. So far, Ray, Gus, and I have gotten involved, with Chris also making a commitment. The children, parents, grandparents love hearing their names announced, and it's great fun doing the announcing. I've said before, it's important for people to be involved in our village. Thank you to the library, the coaches, the children, and those who announce the games. Just some of the reasons our community is so special. And lastly, don't forget tomorrow is June 14th is Flag Day. If you have a flag, fly it proudly. We live in the greatest country in the world that has ever seen. We're blessed to live here. Thank you, Mr. President. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety, Ms. Housefield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the police activity report for the month of May for the police department. They had 783 calls for service, resulting in 656 contacts. There were an additional 550 other services, details that were not necessarily called in by the public. These calls for services included 48 total criminal offenses, resulting in 108 criminal arrests, 62 traffic citations, and 90 traffic warnings. Of these traffic contacts, 31 were primarily for speed and 3 were for OVI. They responded to 23 accidents as well, with 4 of these involving injuries. And as far as news and notes from the police department, they wanted to let the public know that the police motorcycle is now out and about, and we have received a lot of positive feedback from the citizens. Motorists are asked to be alert and mindful of motorcycle and bicycle traffic as the weather finally starts to warm up. They also have a new officer in training. Officer James Savage started on May 29th and is currently training on the night shift. He has over 2 years of prior experience, having previously worked in Hamilton and Terrace Park. And also, as a reminder, kind of going off of Connor's meeting that he had it was probably a month ago, people wanted to discuss traffic and like down certain streets. Not sure exactly what streets they're talking about, but the police chief reminded me today, as a reminder, if you see something that's not right, just call and report it. It's a 911 phone call or a 242-2727 phone call. And if anybody else has any problems and they don't want to call the police department, they can feel free to call me at 513-288-6300. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, Contracts, and Claims, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee held a meeting on June 5th. It was downstairs, not in council chambers, due to Mayor's Court, I believe. It was at 7 o'clock. What was discussed in that meeting was short and long-term rentals. We did push that further down the road. The law director is going to make some changes and bring that back to our next meeting. We also discussed the weed ordinances, which resulted in the recommendation we put in front of you for ordinance number 20, and the attendance policy for council members, which resulted in recommendation for ordinance number 19. The next Laws, Contracts, and Claims meeting has been set for July 24th at 7 p.m. in council chambers. That concludes my, well, Mr. President, I did have one question on the ordinance, and I guess now's as good as time to any. One of the things, Valerie, we had discussed was putting in an appeal section where you could appeal the cost for weeds. Can that be added to it, and can it still be on the table for the next meeting, but that be a discussion point?
Mr. President,
Ms. Van
it
Valken.
hasn't been read yet, so I will look at that, and I'll get something out.
Before, okay.
Yes, before the next,
Perfect.
before the council meeting.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. The first aquatic family night of the season will be this Saturday, June 15th, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The first concert in the pavilion will take place on Saturday, June 22nd at 7 p.m., featuring music from the band Tone Yard. This year's German Luau will take place on Friday, August 2nd, and on Saturday, August 3rd. On Friday, we are featuring the musical group The Naked Karate Girls from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. On Saturday, the music will be provided by Velvet Crush, again, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Please go to the St. Bernard German Luau page on Facebook to learn more about this event, including participating in the parade and purchasing your 2024 Luau merch. Lastly, the St. Bernard Historical Society's next meeting is on Monday, June 17th at 7 p.m. It will take place in the upper level of the municipal building. Kay Heller Phillips will give a presentation on the Railroad Avenue community. That concludes my report.
Thank you. At this time, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? If not, then I show 3 ordinances, one for transfer and additional appropriations, one for councilperson's attendance at meetings, and the third for weed and litter, which will be updated before the next meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Culbertson.
I'll make a motion first. We excuse our one absent member.
I'm sorry, do I have a second on that? Second. Motion by Mr. Culbertson, second by Mr. Schultmeyer to excuse the absent member. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Night.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Culbertson, second by Mr. Schultmeyer to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.